that changes between your previous lessons and this one is that we did critical numbers and relative mins, relative maxes, and we did increasing and decreasing. What changes now is the fact that I'm going to give you a closed interval, and I'm asking you guys for an absolute extrema. So I'm asking for an absolute minimum value or an absolute maximum value. The absolute maximum value is your absolute largest y value that you could possibly have, most positive y value, and your absolute minimum is your absolute most negative value or your smallest value that you can possibly have. Okay, so in the end, your process is the same when you're looking for absolute mins and absolute maxes, because like this is the frowning face parabola, so we know kind of that we're going to have a maximum here. But the question is there if I were to have a minimum, or I were to have like a cubic, is the endpoints a larger value, or is my critical number the largest value? Okay, so the end question that I want to look at today is question 2. I felt like I didn't want to grade another trig problem. So we'll do a non-trig question this time. But when I look at, so just so you know, when I look at question 2, not only am I looking for the critical points, but I'm looking for the relative minimum and maximum along with the absolute, which means that if I label something an absolute, I'm not labeling it a relative. Okay, and relative mins and maximums can only occur at critical numbers. They cannot occur at an endpoint. Okay, so if I go back, all I'm going to do is just add on the idea of looking for an absolute min or absolute max. So step 1, take the derivative. So what's f prime of x? Negative 2x plus 3. Step 2, set the derivative equal to 0. So when I solve, what do I get? X is 3/2, because I move the negative 2x to the other side. Step 3 is going to be to write my chart. So interval, test value, sign of f prime, and the conclusion. And now I only have one little vertical line of x is equal to 3/2. What changes in my chart is the fact that I am bounded between 1 and 3. So that means that I can only go as small as 1 to 3/2, and then as big as 3. So 3/2 to 3. And it is closed bracket because I'm given a closed interval. Makes me mildly sad the fact that I chose my interval to be 1 to 3 instead of like negative 1 to 3, because now I can't choose 0. To choose something else. So between 1 and 3/2, 1 1/4, and then between 3/2 and 3, like 2. You should know without even plugging in these values what it looks like. I should be able to tell the conclusion because I know something about parabolas, and that is my a value is negative, so it automatically opens downward. Okay, so that means that f prime here should be bigger than 0, and f prime should be less than 0. So f is increasing, and f is decreasing. So that means that my critical number, I can have a maximum. I don't know if it's the absolute or not. I mean, in theory, I do, because like we know what the frowny face parabola does. But in other situations, I wouldn't necessarily know if that critical number was my absolute or not unless I put it into my original equation. So my fourth step is to find f of each endpoint. So f of 1 and also f of 3. And then in the middle, I want f of 3/2. You can do this a couple of ways. I can plug in my x values into my equation and solve. So negative of 1 squared plus 3 times 1 minus 2. And then negative of 3 halves squared plus 3 times 3 halves minus 2. And 3, so negative of 3 squared plus 3 times 3 minus 2. So I can do this, or I could have used synthetic division. So I could have done 1 into negative 1, positive 3, negative 2. And I could have done 3 halves into negative 1, 3, and a negative 2. And then done 3 into negative 1, 3, and negative 2. So I can use synthetic division. And I got to be honest, with fractions, it's probably easier to use synthetic division and get the remainder than it is to actually find out all your common denominators. But I'm going to bring down the negative 1. So I have negative 1, so 2, 2, so I get 0. So f of 1 is 0. And then bring down the negative 1, so I get a negative 3 halves. 3 is the same thing as 6 over 2. So that gives me a positive 3 halves. So I get a 9/4. My negative 2 can be a negative 8 over 4, so I can find a common denominator, and I get a positive 1/4. So f of 3 halves is 1/4. And then to do 3, bring the negative 1 down, negative 3, 0, 0, so I get a negative 2. So f of 3 is negative 2. That means overall f has an absolute maximum at 3 halves, comma 1/4, and an absolute minimum at 3 comma negative 2. So it is my largest y value that I have and my smallest y value that I have, or my absolutes. Questions that you guys have? I can only have absolute in 2 cases. 1, I have to have an interval, or 2, it has to be a quadratic. Okay. All right, so question 2 is the one that you guys need to do.